People want to feel safe while progressing forward. So don't remove that protective part of yourself. Redirect it to stop self-sabotaging, but to train that protective side of yourself to allow growth. Hi, welcome to today's discussion. My name is Kanchefu, and here we'll talk about personal development. In particular, we'll talk about life after therapy. If you're new here, make sure you press subscribe. But if not, welcome back. So, let us begin. Self-sabotage is not random. It doesn't come from thin air. It's much rather a coping mechanism, a way you have defaulted to help you, to make things clearer, to protect yourself. So it's not a weakness. It's not something that determines what you can and can't do, but much rather a part of who you are. And furthermore, think about it. People don't ruin things for no reason. There is a pattern behind it. If I was to ask you about self-sabotaging, what comes to mind? What feelings, what thoughts, what experiences have you had with it? Because it usually comes around before progressing or something changing. The questioning, the doubting, the uncertainty, the fear, that voice in your head that thinks twice about what's about to happen. But all it is your mind protecting you from this perceived risk, from this thing that doesn't seem certain, that isn't confident, that isn't fully structured, or maybe not what you're used to. And it can lead to the fear of change overriding the desire of success. Now that's a field we're going to get deeper into. So you end up almost retreating back to the patterns that you know, the way of being, thinking, and doing that is common and comfortable because it feels safer than this unfamiliar growth or this unfamiliar environment. It's nothing to do with a lack of discipline or sticking to what you're saying, but much rather the protection, the way your mind sees what's best for you and you allowing that or not, or much rather working with it. So we could say there's three sides to this. This protective self, this builder/growth kind of self, and this conflict in between. Let's look at one at a time, okay? This protective self, this is the part of you that prioritizes safety, that prioritizes your well-being, and wants you to always be okay in the best place possible. Comfortable, warm, not stretching yourself and doing something out of the norm, keeping in a lane or in a place that feels familiar, avoiding risk, exposure, and uncertainty, all to help you maintain this current identity. There's nothing wrong or right about it. It is what it is. It's playing its part, and like any other function of your being. So if that's one side, let's look at this builder/growth self. This is the part of you that prioritizes growth and progression and moving forward and working on a process to make a new outcome happen. That part of you that likes discomfort, that likes to be expanded and stretched that little bit more, and really has that long-term perspective of this sacrifice or this energy and focus that I put in now, later down the line I'm going to reap the benefits of it. So instead it builds your identity through your action. But then we've got one more aspect of this self, the conflict. The thing in between that disrupts the flow or the balance of these two ways of being. The protective side of yourself can interrupt the momentum that you've built. And then on the flip side, the progress you've made can trigger some resistance, some unfamiliar feelings that aren't always accepted. And then it's this internal contradiction that creates this inconsistency, that creates this yes, let's go for another time, maybe I'm not so certain. That relies on this motivation, that relies on a wish and a snap of a fingers for everything to change in that very moment. But what we're discussing, there's a deeper element to that needs to be addressed. If we were to look at an example, let's look at this. Describe in your own mind and think about somebody who's close to progress. What actions do they do and what actions don't they do? What's their mental attitude? What's their belief about themselves and about what they're doing? As they begin to see results, this reinforces that the actions they're taking are working and what they believe of themselves is true. Right? Somebody close to progress, they begin to see results, whether that's physically, whether that's mentally, whether that's spiritually, or whether that's emotionally, internally and externally, right? Whether that's, within themselves or the things around in their environment and their life. However, they delay, avoid, and disrupt that momentum, that daily step that they've taken, and instead justify that behavior after the fact. It's as if they want to achieve a goal, they see themselves doing it, they take some steps forward, but something is just pulling them back. But that pulling back effect is overriding their actions and instead actually determining the direction of it. But if we think of this differently, to someone who's aware of that self-sabotage, how does this person behave, act, or think and feel? One definite thing is they recognize the patterns early. Just simply noticing the thoughts, the feelings that are arising within oneself, in an environment, in a circumstance, in a situation is key. And through that awareness, they can identify this trigger point. What has made this thought happen? Is it someone saying something? Is it recalling a past memory that had a negative experience? Is it the self-talk that you've heard from others or that you've garnered up yourself? But through that, they actually interrupt that behavior And that's profound. So let's make a way to interrupt that behavior together. The next time you're self-sabotaging yourself, whether you realize it or you don't, whether you think you have or whether you think you haven't, reflect on this. I want you to identify that sabotaging moment. What happened? Where was it? Who was involved? And what did you do? And then define the trigger when that sabotaging begins. The exact moment you recognize that one thought, that one feeling, that one almost hesitant step you're about to take. And replace that behavior with a fixed action. Do something about it. Whether you're taking that step without that uncertain mind, whether you're about to make that call, lift up that weight, go for that walk, whatever it may be, physical, mental, spiritual, do an action. But do it immediately and repeat that response every single time. And sure enough, you'll build a pattern through this consistency. And that's what I'm going to leave it today. If you enjoyed today's discussion, make sure you press subscribe and also share this with a friend or family member you know they self-sabotage themselves quite often. I'm going to ask you this final question. What do you sabotage right before it works? If you'd like one-to-one support on how you self-sabotage, comment the word discipline. My name is Kanchefu once more. Have a good day, morning, night or evening, wherever you are in the world watching this. And I'll see you next week for our next discussion.